I cannot, okay. I need everyone to look at this bag right now. I'm at a private jet terminal in Dallas and there is a bag on the counter that I'm pretty sure arrived here in a time machine. Like, ma'am, what is happening? The clasp is broken. There's a ribbon, holding it shut. The leather looks like it's been through a war and lost. I need a moment. I need to process. This bag is not having its best life. She smiled. She lowered the phone. She glanced at the counter. Alma was still signing the fuel receipt. She hadn't moved. The bag was still sitting there, tilted to the left, ribbon tied in its neat bow. Cassidy looked at Jordan. Did you see that bag? Jordan glanced over. What bag? The never mind, I got it. She'd post it later, edit it first, add a caption, something light, something funny, not mean, never mean, just observational. That was the word she used in her own mind to describe what she did, observational. The word did a lot of work. It carried the weight of every unkindness she'd ever committed on camera and redistributed it into something that sounded like journalism but functioned like mockery. Let me tell you about the bag now. Not what it looked like, I've told you that. What it was. Alma Jean Prescott was born in 1950 in Greenwood, Mississippi, in a shotgun house on Avenue F, 3 blocks from the railroad tracks, in a neighborhood where the roads were dirt until 1967, and the water came from a well until 1971. Her mother, Pearline, died when Alma was 4, pneumonia, misdiagnosed twice, treated too late. The way illness was treated for black women in rural Mississippi in 1954, which is to say barely and begrudgingly. Alma was raised by her mother's sister, Odessa Mee Simmons. Everyone called her Desai. Desai never married. She worked at a commercial laundry in Greenwood, industrial machines, institutional clients, hospital sheets and hotel towels, from 1948 until the laundry closed in 1987. 39 years. She washed, pressed, and folded linens for a town that was built on cotton money and sustained by black labor. And she did it for wages that rose from 32 cents an hour in 1948 to $4.25 an hour in 1987. The year the place shut down because the owner died and his children sold the equipment. Desai raised Alma in the shotgun house on Avenue F. She fed her grits and eggs in the morning and cornbread and field peas at night. She walked her to school. She checked her homework at the kitchen table under a bare bulb. She saved, not invested, not accrued, saved in a coffee can behind the stove, enough money to buy Alma a bus ticket to Memphis in 1968, where Alma had been accepted at a secretarial school that one of Desai's church members had found out about through a cousin. The morning Alma left Greenwood, Desai gave her the bag. It was brown. It was new. Desai had bought it from the Montgomery Ward catalog for $3.75, paid in 2 installments, and had kept it in tissue paper in the bottom of her closet for 4 months, waiting for the day Alma would need something to carry her life in. She handed it to Alma on the front porch of the shotgun house at 5:45 in the morning, while the sky was still gray and the neighborhood was still asleep. "This is yours now," Desai said. "Don't lose it, don't lend it. It's the only one you get." Alma took it. She opened the clasp. It was stiff, new, the brass bright and unscratched, and looked inside. The lining was clean. The interior pocket was empty. "What do I put in it?" Alma asked. Desai looked at her. Desai was 43 years old. She had raised her dead sister's child alone on a laundress's wages in a town that didn't value either of them. She was tired in a way that went past her body and into her bones. But her eyes were not tired. Her eyes held something that Alma wouldn't recognize until decades later when she was old enough to understand it. It was fury, not the hot, burning kind, the cold, structural kind. The fury of a woman who has been undervalued by every system she's ever moved through and who has decided, quietly, permanently, that the system's valuation is wrong. "Put yourself in it," Desai said. "Everything you are, everything you're going to be, put it all in that bag and carry it with you. And when people look at you and think they know what you're worth, you hold on to that bag and you remember they don't know anything. Alma took the Greyhound to Memphis. She completed the secretarial program. She got a job at a freight brokerage company in 1970, typing invoices and filing bills of lading. She learned the business not from the classes, which were designed to teach women how to support the men who ran things, but from the invoices themselves, which taught her something far more valuable: how goods moved across the country, who moved them, what it cost, and where the margins were. By 1976, she was the office manager. By 1982, she understood the business better than the man who owned it. By 1991, she owned her own. Prescott Logistics Group started with 3 trucks and a lease on a warehouse outside Jackson, Mississippi. The company brokered freight, matching shippers with carriers, negotiating rates, managing the logistics of moving physical goods across the American South. It was not glamorous. It was not photogenic. It was the invisible infrastructure of commerce, the thing that happens between a factory floor and a store shelf, handled by people whose names never appear on the products they move. Alma was good at it because Desai had trained her to be good at invisible things. Invisible labor was Desai's specialty. 39 years of laundry, other people's sheets, other people's towels, other people's tablecloths, had given Desai an understanding of work that most people never develop. That the work that matters most is the work nobody sees, and that the people who do it are the foundation the rest of the world stands on. Alma applied that understanding to freight. She treated her drivers the way Desai treated her own work, with precision, dignity, and the expectation that invisible labor deserved visible respect. She paid above market. She offered health insurance before her competitors did. She maintained her trucks to standards that exceeded federal requirements. And she grew. Slowly, steadily, without spectacle, the way a tree grows, adding rings that nobody counts until someone cuts it open and sees the decades inside. By 2005, Prescott Logistics had a fleet of 240 trucks and annual revenues of $68 million. By 2015, the company had expanded into warehousing, last-mile delivery, and cold chain logistics for the pharmaceutical industry. Revenue crossed $200 million. Alma was 65 and showed no sign of slowing down. In 2017, she bought the first jet, the Citation Latitude, because she was spending 4 hours a day in airport security lines at DFW and Love Field, and her cardiologist told her the stress was bad for her heart, and her son Terrence said, "Mama, you can afford to buy the whole airport. At least buy the plane." She bought the plane. Then she bought the Gulfstream. Then she set up a hangar at Love Field and hired Marcus Eldridge, a black pilot from Houston, former Air Force, meticulous and unflappable, to be her chief captain. She did all of this carrying the bag. The bag went with Alma to Memphis in 1968. It went with her to Jackson in 1991. It went with her to the bank where she applied for her first business loan and was told, by a loan officer named Gerald who didn't look up from his desk when she walked in, that the SBA program for minority businesses requires a cosigner, perhaps your husband. Alma didn't have a husband. She had a bag with a functioning clasp and 7 years of industry experience, and a business plan she'd written at the kitchen table of the Shotgun House in Greenwood, where she'd gone back to live after Desai's stroke in 1989. She got the loan, not from Gerald, from a different bank across town where the loan officer was a black woman named Vivian Harper who read the business plan in 45 minutes and said, "This is solid. Let's talk numbers." The bag went with Alma to the closing on her first warehouse. It went with her to the truck lot where she bought her first 3 Freightliners. It went with her to the Teamsters negotiation in 1996, where she sat across from a union representative who assumed the small black woman with the old bag was a secretary and kept directing his comments to her attorney, a man named Daniel Chen, who finally said, "Mr. Wallace, you're speaking to the wrong person. She's the owner. I'm just here to take notes." The bag went to Desai's funeral, That was the worst day. November 17, 1985. Alma was 35. The stroke had taken most of Desai's speech 2 years earlier, and the second stroke, the one that finished it, came on a Tuesday morning while Desai was sitting in her chair by the window, watching the mockingbirds in the chinaberry tree. Alma was in Jackson when she got the call. She drove to Greenwood in 3 hours. She walked into the shotgun house on Avenue F and sat in Desai's chair and held Desai's hand, which was still warm, which was still the hand that had given her the bag on the porch at 5:45 in the morning in 1968. The funeral was at Greater Mount Calvary Baptist Church. The choir sang, "His Eye is on the Sparrow." The bulletin, cream-colored, with a photo of Desai on the front, a photo in which Desai was not smiling because Desai almost never smiled in photographs but was smiling in life, a distinction that photographs never capture, was printed on a hand-crank mimeograph machine by the church secretary, and the ink smudged on the fold. Alma took one bulletin. She folded it. She put it in the interior pocket of the bag. She has not removed it. The bag went everywhere after that. It went to the Dallas Chamber of Commerce dinner where Alma was named Small Business Owner of the Year in 2004 and gave a speech that lasted exactly 3 minutes and ended with, "I'd like to thank my Aunt Desai, who taught me that the work nobody sees is the work that holds the world together. Everything I have, I carry because of her." She held up the bag when she said it. The room didn't understand. They applauded politely. The bag went to the tarmac at Love Field the first time Alma boarded her own jet. Marcus Eldridge was standing at the bottom of the air stairs. He reached for the bag, a reflex, a courtesy, the way a pilot offers to carry a passenger's belongings. Alma shook her head. "I carry this one myself." Marcus nodded. He never reached for it again. The bag went to Austin, to Houston, to Memphis, to New York, to London. It went to the warehouse dedication in Greenwood in 2019, where Prescott Logistics opened a distribution center that employed 112 people in a town that had been losing jobs for 40 years. The warehouse was built on a lot 2 blocks from Avenue F. Alma could see the roof of the shotgun house from the warehouse parking lot. The bag went everywhere, and it looked, to anyone who didn't know its history, like something that should have been replaced 40 years ago. That was the point. Alma finished signing the fuel receipt. She picked up the bag. She turned from the counter and walked toward the glass doors that led to the ramp. Cassidy Monroe was sitting in one of the leather chairs near the fireplace, scrolling through her phone, reviewing the clip she just filmed. She didn't look up as Alma passed. Alma didn't look at her. But something happened, a small thing, the kind of thing that most people wouldn't register. As Alma walked past, the bag brushed against the arm of the leather chair where Cassidy was sitting. A light touch, the soft, worn leather of the bag against the stiff, new leather of the chair. Cassidy glanced up. Her eyes went to the bag, then to Alma, then back to her phone. In that glance, 2 seconds, maybe less, Cassidy saw an old black woman in flat shoes carrying a bag that looked like it should be in a donation bin. She did not see a woman who employed 1,400 people across 6 states. She did not see a woman whose company moved 11% of the refrigerated pharmaceutical freight in the American South. She did not see a woman who had, that morning, authorized a $12 million equipment purchase for the Greenwood Distribution Center, and then driven herself to the airport in a Honda Accord to fly to Austin for her granddaughter's piano recital. She saw a bag, and the bag was old, and that was the whole assessment. Keisha, at the counter, watched Alma walk through the glass doors and onto the ramp. She watched her cross the tarmac toward the Citation Latitude, where Marcus Eldridge was standing at the air stairs in his captain's shirt, holding a cup of coffee. "Morning, Mrs. Prescott." "Morning, Marcus. Did you eat?" "Yes, ma'am. Had eggs and toast at the hotel." "Good. Let's go see my baby play choppin'." Alma climbed the stairs. The bag went with her. The door closed. The engine started. The citation taxied to runway 13R and took off into a clear October sky, turning south toward Austin. Cassidy Monroe in the lobby didn't notice. She was editing her clip. The video went up at 6:47 that evening. Cassidy posted it to Instagram Reels first, then TikTok 30 minutes later. The Instagram version had a caption, "Me trying to understand the bag situation at the private jet terminal loudly airplane luxury travel, what is happening bags of Instagram." The TikTok version had a trending audio, a comedic sound effect that played a descending whistle, the auditory equivalent of watching something fall off a shelf. She'd timed the whistle to sync with the moment the bag appeared in frame. The video was 24 seconds long. It showed Cassidy in the foreground reacting. In the background, slightly out of focus, Alma was visible at the counter, the cardigan, the glasses, the posture. The bag was visible on the counter. The ribbon was visible. The worn leather was visible. Cassidy's face in the video was expressive without being aggressive. She raised her eyebrows. She pressed her lips together. She shook her head slowly, the performance of disbelief that her audience had been trained to read as humor. She didn't use any slurs. She didn't call Alma a name. She didn't reference race directly. She didn't need to. The visual did the work, an old black woman with an old bag in a room where neither appeared to belong, presented as an anomaly, as a joke, as content. Within 2 hours, the video had 60,000 views on TikTok and 22,000 on Instagram. The comments were what Cassidy expected. "The ribbon is taking me out, skull. Grandma's bag has lived through 3 presidencies. How did she even get into that terminal?" face with tears of joy. The assumption in the comments was nearly universal. The old woman was lost, out of place. Maybe she'd wandered in from the commercial terminal. Maybe she was someone's housekeeper being dropped off. Maybe she was confused. The idea that she belonged there, that she had more right to be in that building than anyone else in it, did not occur to the comment section, because the comment section had been trained by 1,000 videos and 1,000,000 algorithms to believe that wealth looks a specific way, and that anything outside that appearance was either an error or a punchline. Cassidy watched the numbers climb. She felt the familiar dopamine pulse of engagement, the metric that her brain had learned over 4 years of content creation to treat as the primary reward signal of her professional life. The video was performing. The algorithm was pushing it. The brand deal in Austin was going well. Life was good. She went to bed in a hotel room in Austin at 11:15 p.m. The video had 112,000 views. She fell asleep quickly, the way people sleep when they believe they've had a good day. Wednesday morning. The shift began slowly, not with a single viral response, not with a takedown or a call-out or a celebrity quote tweet. It began in the comments section of Cassidy's own video, where new voices started appearing alongside the laughing emojis. They came from accounts that didn't look like Cassidy's usual audience. Profile pictures of women in their 50s and 60s. Accounts with 300 followers, not 300,000. Accounts that posted photos of grandchildren and church events and sunsets over flat Texas landscapes. These women didn't use emojis. They used sentences. "I don't know who this woman is, but I know what that bag is. My mother carried a bag like that her whole life. She worked 2 jobs to feed us. That bag went to every parent-teacher conference, every doctor's appointment, every bus stop at 5 a.m. It's not a joke. It's a life." You're standing in a private terminal making fun of an elderly woman you don't know. What does that say about you? That bag has been somewhere. That bag has done something. Has yours. The comments accumulated, not in a flood, in a rising tide. Steady, persistent, each one written with a care and a specificity that stood in sharp contrast to the one-line reactions that made up the rest of the comment section. These women wrote paragraphs. They wrote about their mother's bags, their grandmother's bags, the objects they'd carried through lives that nobody filmed and nobody scored and nobody held up to a camera for a descending whistle sound effect. By Wednesday afternoon, the comment section had shifted. The laughing emojis were still there, but they were outnumbered. The new comments were getting more likes than the old ones. The algorithm, which is agnostic about morality but responsive to engagement, began surfacing the critical comments above the supportive ones. And then the identification happened. It came from a man named Terrence Prescott, Alma's son. Terrence was 47, the chief operating officer of Prescott Logistics, and a person who, unlike his mother, was active on social media. Not as an influencer, as a businessman who used LinkedIn and Twitter to discuss supply chain issues, workforce development, and the freight industry. Terrence's daughter, Alma's granddaughter, the one whose piano recital Alma had flown to Austin for, was 14 years old and had a TikTok account. She saw the video Wednesday morning before school. She recognized her grandmother immediately. Not by her face, it was blurred, but by the bag. Everyone in the Prescott family recognized the bag. It was as familiar as Alma's voice, as present as her chair at the Thanksgiving table. The granddaughter showed her father. Terrence watched the video once. He watched it again. His jaw did something that his wife, standing in the kitchen behind him, recognized as the precursor to a very specific kind of controlled anger, the kind that doesn't shout but doesn't forgive. "Is that Mama?" his wife asked. "Yes." "And the bag?" "Yes." Terrence set his phone down. He picked it up. He set it down again. He was deciding something, and the decision was between two versions of himself. The version that wanted to respond immediately, publicly, with the full weight of his mother's story and the full force of his anger, and the version that his mother had raised, the version that knew how to wait, how to let the moment settle, how to respond with precision instead of heat. He called Alma. She was in Greenwood. She'd flown from Austin to Greenwood after the recital to check on the distribution center. She was sitting in the warehouse office, drinking coffee from a styrofoam cup, reviewing shipping manifests. "Mama, have you been on the internet today?" "Terrence, I don't do the internet." "Someone filmed you at Love Field yesterday, a young woman. She filmed your bag and made fun of it. The videos got a lot of views." Alma was quiet. Terrence could hear the warehouse forklifts beeping, the low hum of refrigeration units, the muffled voices of the morning shift. "What did she say?" Alma asked. "She said the bag looked like it came in a time machine. She made fun of the ribbon, the clasp." "The clasp works fine. You just have to know how to work it." "Mama." "What do you want me to say, Terrence? A girl I've never met laughed at a bag she's never held. That's not my problem, that's hers. People are sharing this, a lot of people. Let them share it." "Don't you want me to? I could put out a statement. I could." "You could do what? Tell the world your mama's rich. So what? That's not why that bag matters. I'm not going to use this size bag to win an argument on the internet. That's exactly what that girl did. She used it. She turned it into something for people to look at. I'm not doing the same thing from the other direction." Terrence was quiet. "But Mama, people think. They think you're some lost old lady who wandered into the wrong terminal." "I've been called worse by better." "Mama." "Terrence, listen to me. That girl looked at me and saw an old woman with a cheap bag. She was wrong, but not about what she thinks she was wrong about. She wasn't wrong because the bag is secretly valuable. She was wrong because she decided that what something looks like is what it's worth. And if you go on the internet and say, 'My mama owns a private jet,' all you're doing is agreeing with her. You're saying the bag matters because there's a jet behind it. The bag mattered before the jet. The bag mattered when Desai bought it for $3.75 from a catalog. The bag mattered when I was riding a Greyhound to Memphis with everything I owned inside it. It doesn't need a jet to matter. Desai didn't have a jet. Desai had a washing machine and a church dress, and a niece she loved enough to spend 2 installments on a catalog bag." She paused. Don't make this about money. That's her game, not mine. Terrence didn't make a statement. He didn't post a response. He didn't identify his mother publicly. But he did call Keisha Rowland at Signature Flight Support. Keisha answered on the second ring. "This is Terrence Prescott, Alma Prescott's son." "Yes, sir. Is Mrs. Prescott all right?" "She's fine. I'm calling because did you see what happened yesterday? At the counter, a young woman filming my mother." Keisha's voice changed, not dramatically. It got quieter, more careful. "I saw it." "What did you see?" "I saw a girl point her phone at your mother's bag and laugh. I couldn't hear what she said. There was music, but I saw the camera angle. I saw the expression. I knew what she was doing." "Did you say anything?" "No, sir, I know." "Why not?" Keisha was quiet for a moment. "Because she was a client's guest, and I'm staff. And the last time I said something to a guest about their behavior, my supervisor told me it wasn't my place. So I—" She stopped. "I filed it," she said. "In my head. I filed it where I file everything I see that I can't do anything about." Terrence heard the weight in that sentence. The cabinet full of filed things. "Keisha, I'm not calling to blame you. I'm calling to ask you something. If I send the company's general counsel to talk to you, would you be willing to describe what you saw? On the record." "On the record for what?" "I don't know yet, but my mother doesn't use the internet. She won't see this video. She won't respond to it. And the girl who made it, I don't think she has any idea what she did or who she did it to. I'm not going to tell the internet my mother's net worth, but I want a record. I want someone somewhere to have the real story, in case it matters later." Keisha thought about it. "Yes," she said, "I'll talk to your counsel." What happened next was not a campaign. It was not orchestrated. It was organic in the truest sense. It grew from the ground, fed by something that no algorithm planted. The women in Cassidy's comment section, the ones who wrote paragraphs, the ones who remembered their mother's bags, had created a current that moved outside the video's frame. Their comments were screenshotted and shared across Facebook groups, across church text chains, across the informal digital networks where Black women over 50 communicate with each other in a language the platforms don't track and the algorithms don't measure. The conversation spread not because anyone directed it, but because the video had touched something real, something that existed before the internet and would exist after it. The bag, the mother, the grandmother, the object that held a life together. Every woman who'd ever carried a bag like that, who'd ever watched her mother carry one, who'd ever held one at a funeral and not known what to do with it, recognized the story the video was trying to make funny, and they refused. They didn't refuse loudly. They refused the way Desai would have refused, by telling the truth plainly in full sentences, without raising their voices. A retired schoolteacher in Memphis posted on Facebook, "I see this video going around of an old woman's bag being laughed at. I don't know who she is, but I know that bag. My mother had one just like it. She carried it to work every day for 23 years. She was a cafeteria worker at an elementary school. When she died, my sister wanted to throw it away. I kept it. It's in my closet right now. It's worth nothing and it's worth everything." A nurse in Houston shared the schoolteacher's post and added, "My grandmother's bag was a cloth one with a metal clasp. She carried her insulin in it, her Bible, a photo of my grandfather. When she went into the nursing home, the admissions nurse put her belongings in a plastic bag and threw the cloth bag away. I found out a week later. I have never forgiven myself for not being there." A truck driver's wife in Greenwood, Mississippi, a woman who worked at the Prescott Logistics Distribution Center, saw the video and recognized the terminal. She didn't recognize Alma's face, but she told her husband, who told his supervisor, who told the warehouse manager, who called Terrence. "Someone at the FBO filmed your mama. I know. People here are upset. Tell them mama's fine. Tell them she says don't worry about it. Terrence, they want to do something." "I know, but mama said no. She doesn't want this to be about the money. The warehouse manager was quiet. Then, it's not about the money, it's about respect. By Thursday, the video had 1.4 million views. The comment section was a battlefield, not the vicious, anonymous warfare that characterizes most viral conflicts, but something more substantive. Two worldviews were colliding, and neither side was willing to retreat. On one side, the audience that saw the bag as content, a funny visual and incongruity, entertainment. On the other, the audience that saw the bag as sacred, a life carried, a history held, a thing that should not have been touched. Cassidy was aware of the shift. She couldn't not be. Her notifications were a wall of contradictory signals. Her DMs were a mess of support and criticism. And her engagement rate had spiked in a way that her manager, a 36-year-old named Rachel at a talent agency in Los Angeles, described on a call Thursday morning as complicated. The views are great. The sentiment split is not great. 3 brands have reached out to ask about the video, not to partner, to ask. As in, they want to know if this is going to be a problem. It's not a problem. It's a reaction video about a bag. Cassidy, it's a reaction video about an old black woman's bag. In 2024, on the internet, that's a different conversation. I didn't say anything about race. You didn't have to, the visual says it. The comments say it. The context says it. You're in a private jet terminal. She's the only black person in frame. You're laughing. That's the whole story, whether you wrote it that way or not. Cassidy was quiet. What do I do? For now, nothing. Don't post about it. Don't delete it. That looks like guilt. Don't engage with the comments. Let it cycle. Most things cycle. And if it doesn't, then we adjust. It didn't cycle. By Friday, 2 things had happened that moved the story beyond the comment section and into a space Cassidy couldn't control. The first was Deacon Robert Hayes. Deacon Hayes was 71 years old, a retired long-haul trucker who had driven for Prescott Logistics for 18 years before his knees gave out, and Alma personally, over the phone, in a conversation that lasted 40 minutes, told him she was setting up a pension for him and the other early retirees because you drove my trucks for 2 decades, and I'm not going to let you eat ramen in your 70s. Robert Hayes had a YouTube channel. It had about 9,000 subscribers. He used it mostly to post fishing videos and the occasional commentary on trucking industry news. He was not a polished creator. His production quality was a webcam and an overhead light. His backdrop was his living room in Tupelo. On Thursday night, he posted a video. It was 19 minutes long. It was titled, "That Bag Belongs to the Woman Who Changed My Life." He didn't reveal Alma's net worth. He didn't name Prescott Logistics. He didn't show the jet. He told a story. He told the story of driving freight in the early 2000s, the long hauls, the bad food, the way stations, the loneliness. He told the story of working for a company that was different from every other company he'd worked for because the owner, a woman, a black woman, a woman who carried an old brown bag, answered her own phone, returned his calls, knew his name, asked about his wife's knee surgery, sent flowers when his mother died. He told the story of the pension, how Alma called him personally, how she said, "Robert, you gave me 18 years. I owe you more than a thank you." Told the story of the bag, not its history. He didn't know its history. He told what he'd observed. "I saw that bag 100 times. Every time she came to the warehouse, every time she walked through the yard, she had that bag, old as the hills. Leather worn down to nothing, ribbon on the clasp. And I'll tell you something, every man on that yard, every driver, every dock worker, every mechanic, we respected that bag, because we knew it meant something. We didn't know what, but you could tell. By the way she held it, you don't hold a thing like that if it's just a thing." He looked into the camera. His eyes were wet. And some girl on the internet is laughing at it. Some girl who's never driven a mile of freight, never loaded a pallet, never done a day of work that left dirt under her fingernails. She's laughing at a bag that's been through more than she'll ever go through. And I just think somebody should say something. So I'm saying it. That bag belongs to a woman who changed my life. And I don't care if she owns a jet or a bicycle. That bag deserves better than being laughed at by a child who doesn't know what work looks like. The video was watched by 11,000 people in the first 12 hours. By Sunday, it had crossed 170,000. It was not Cassidy's audience who found it. It was a different audience entirely. The audience of people who work with their hands, who carry old things because old things remember, who understood exactly what Robert Hayes was talking about because they had lived it. The second thing that happened was quieter. It happened inside Cassidy's own team. Jordan, her videographer, 23, the one who'd been adjusting lenses while Cassidy filmed, watched Robert Hayes' video Friday evening in his hotel room in Austin. He watched it twice. Then he sat on the edge of the bed and felt something he couldn't immediately name. It wasn't guilt exactly. Jordan hadn't filmed the bag video. Cassidy had shot it herself on her phone. He hadn't been involved, but he'd been there. He'd been in the room. He'd seen the old woman at the counter. He'd seen the bag. And he'd said nothing, not because he approved, but because he was 23 and this was his job and Cassidy was his employer, and the content economy doesn't reward people who question the content. Jordan's grandmother, his father's mother, a woman named Dolers who lived in a small house in Shreveport, carried a purse that she'd had since the 1980s. It was vinyl, not leather. The zipper was broken. She kept it closed with a safety pin. Inside it was a wallet with photos of every grandchild, a pack of juicy fruit gum, and a prayer card from her husband's funeral in 2009. Jordan thought about that purse. He thought about what it would feel like to see it on TikTok, scored and rated and reduced to a punchline. He didn't confront Cassidy. He didn't post a response. He didn't quit. But something shifted in him, a hairline fracture in the wall between the person he was and the person the industry was shaping him to become. A fracture that would, over time, either heal into something stronger or widen into something that couldn't be bridged. On Saturday morning, Jordan told Cassidy he needed to talk. They sat in the hotel lobby. Jordan was visibly uncomfortable. He was young. He needed this job, and he had never disagreed with a client openly. "I saw a video about the woman in Dallas," he said. "The one with the bag." Cassidy's expression shifted. "What video?" "Some guy on YouTube. He says he knows her. He says the bag is important to her. Like personally important, not just a bag." "Jordan, it is just a bag." "Is it? Because this guy drove trucks for her for 18 years. He says she changed his life. He's crying in the video, Cassidy, like actually crying." Cassidy was quiet. "I don't know who she is," Jordan continued. "I don't know if she's rich or poor or whatever, but I keep thinking about my grandma's purse, the vinyl one with the safety pin, and I think if someone filmed that and put a whistle sound effect on it, I'd—" He stopped. He looked at the table. "I'd be really upset," he said quietly. "And my grandma wouldn't even know. She doesn't have a phone, she wouldn't see it, but I would, and it would hurt." Cassidy looked at Jordan, this kid who followed her around with a gimbal, and never complained and edited her videos until 2 in the morning, and had never, in 8 months of working together, told her she was wrong about anything. He was telling her now. She didn't respond immediately. She thanked him for being honest. She went back to her room. She sat on the bed and opened TikTok and watched Robert Hayes' video. She watched the whole thing, 19 minutes, the fishing backdrop, the overhead light, the wet eyes. Then she opened the original video, her video, the 24-second clip with the whistle sound effect, and she watched it the way Robert Hayes' audience watched it. Not as content, as an act performed upon a person who didn't know it was happening, for an audience that didn't know who she was, for a purpose that had nothing to do with the woman and everything to do with Cassidy. She saw what Jordan saw, what the women in the comments saw, what Robert Hayes saw. She saw a bag, and behind the bag a life, and behind the life a history, and behind the history a woman at a counter signing a receipt wearing reading glasses, going somewhere to see her granddaughter play Chopin, though Cassidy didn't know that, carrying the only object she had left from the person who loved her first. Cassidy deleted the video. Not quietly. She deleted it and posted a 4-minute video in its place. No filters, no sound effects, no trending audio, just her face in hotel room lighting with visible exhaustion around her eyes. She didn't know Alma's name. She didn't know the full story of the bag. She only knew what Jordan had told her and what Robert Hayes had said in his video. And so her apology was imperfect. It was built on incomplete information, the way most apologies are. But it was honest in one way that matters. "I don't know who that woman is," Cassidy said. "And I'm starting to think that's the whole problem. I never know who the people in my videos are. I don't ask. I don't think about them as people. I think about them as content, as a visual, as a moment I can use." She paused. Someone who knows her said that bag means something to her, something personal, something real. And I pointed a camera at it and made a joke, and 1 million people laughed. And I didn't think twice about it because that's what I do. I find things that look out of place and I make them funny. But out of place to who? Out of place according to what? According to me. A 25-year-old who owns nothing that matters and carries a bag she got for free from a brand deal. She looked at the camera. The performance energy that usually animated her face was absent. What was left was just a person, sitting on a bed, reckoning with something she hadn't expected to reckon with. "I'm sorry, I deleted the video. I should have deleted it sooner. And I'm going to think about what I'm doing. Not just this video, all of it. Because if this is what the job is, if the job is turning real people into content without knowing anything about them, then the job is wrong. And I've been doing it wrong." The apology video got 700,000 views. The comments were mixed. Some people accepted it. Some people didn't. Some people said it was performative, that she was only apologizing because the backlash had reached her sponsors. That was partly true, and Cassidy knew it. The truth is that most apologies are catalyzed by consequence. The question is whether the consequence opens a door or just scares you into closing one. Cassidy didn't know which one this was. Not yet. She was 25. The answer would take years. Alma never saw the video. Not the original, not the apology, not Robert Hayes' response. She heard about all of it, of course. Terrence told her. The warehouse manager told her. Patricia, the woman who ran the front office at the Greenwood Distribution Center, told her. The women at Greater Mount Calvary told her. They heard about it from their grandchildren, the way church women hear about everything, which is through a network of familial surveillance that predates the internet by centuries and will outlast it by more. Alma listened to what everyone told her. She thanked them for their concern. She told them she was fine. She went to work. She went to church. She called Marcus Eldridge and asked if the citation needed a landing gear inspection because she'd felt something during the Austin departure that might have been a shimmy. Marcus checked. It wasn't a shimmy. The gear was fine. On the Sunday after the video went viral, Alma sat in her pew at Greater Mount Calvary. 3rd row from the front left side, the seat she'd been sitting in for 56 years, the same seat Desai had sat in before her. The bag was in her lap. The bulletin from 1985 was in the interior pocket. The dried lipstick, Desai's lipstick, Revlon, shade called Cherries in the Snow, long discontinued, was in the exterior pocket, where it had been since 1986. The pastor preached about David and Goliath. Alma listened. She held the bag. After the service, a woman Alma had known for 40 years, a woman named Marguerite, 81, retired postal worker, 3 inches shorter than Alma and twice as opinionated, sat beside her on the church bench outside and said, "I heard some girl on the computer laughed at Desai's bag. So they tell me. How do you feel about it?" Alma thought about it. She looked at the live oaks in the churchyard. She looked at the cemetery beyond them, where Desai was buried next to Perline, under a headstone that read Simmons and nothing else because neither woman had married and neither had wanted to. I feel like Desai would have said, "A dog that barks at the moon doesn't bother the moon," Alma said. Marguerite snorted. Desai would have said something a lot saltier than that. Alma smiled, the first smile of the day, the smile she saved for people who had known her long enough to earn the real one. "You're right," Alma said. Desai would have said, "That girl needs to carry something heavier than a phone before she earns the right to judge what I carry." They sat together on the bench for a while. The churchyard was quiet. The live oaks moved in the breeze. Somewhere in the cemetery, Desai's grave was shaded by a crepe myrtle that Alma had planted in 2004, and that had grown, in 20 years, into something that no longer needed tending. Terrence did eventually make one public act. Not a statement, not a social media post, not an interview, something smaller and more permanent. He called the general counsel. He called the marketing director. And he authorized a change to the Prescott Logistics Group corporate website, the About page, which had not been updated since 2019. The old version had a brief paragraph about the company's founding and a photo of the Greenwood Distribution Center. The new version had the same paragraph, but below it there was a new section. It was titled What We Carry. It read, Prescott Logistics was founded in 1991 by Alma Jean Prescott with 3 trucks, a warehouse lease, and a brown leather bag given to her by her aunt, Odessa Mee Simmons, on the morning Alma left Greenwood, Mississippi, to build her life. Odessa, known to everyone as Desai, worked at a commercial laundry in Greenwood for 39 years. She raised Alma after Alma's mother died. She saved in coffee cans. She walked to work. She never earned more than $4.25 an hour. She bought the bag from a Montgomery Ward catalog for $3.75, paid in 2 installments. Alma carries it every day. This company moves freight across the American South. We move pharmaceuticals, produce, building materials, and manufactured goods. We employ 1,400 people in 6 states. We operate a fleet of aircraft and a network of distribution centers. But everything we are started with a woman who washed other people's sheets for 39 years and used what she saved to give her niece a bag and a bus ticket and a single instruction. Put yourself in it. We carry that instruction every day, in everything we move, in every mile we drive, in every person we employ. We carry what she gave us. Below the text was a photograph, not of the jet, not of the fleet, not of the distribution center. It was a photo of the bag sitting on a kitchen table in the Shotgun House on Avenue F, taken by Alma in 2003, the week after Desai died. The clasp was still working in the photo. The leather was already soft. The ribbon hadn't been added yet, that came later after the clasp finally gave. The bag was open, and inside it, visible in the photograph, was the church bulletin from the funeral, folded in thirds. The photo was not high resolution. It was not professionally lit. It was taken by a woman in grief with a disposable camera, in a house that no longer had anyone in it but still smelled like Desai's cooking. It was the most visited page on the Prescott Logistics website for 7 consecutive weeks. One more thing. 3 months after the video, Cassidy Monroe was at LAX, waiting for a commercial flight to New York. She was in the terminal, the regular terminal, the one with the Chick-fil-A and the CNN monitor and the family sleeping across rows of vinyl seats. She'd been dropped from 2 brand partnerships and picked up by one new one, a smaller company, less money, different tone. Her content had changed. Not dramatically. Gradually. She filmed less of other people and more of herself. She asked more questions. She sat with more silence. She was sitting at the gate, scrolling her phone, when she noticed a woman across the aisle. The woman was old, maybe 70, maybe older. She was black. She was wearing a floral dress and white orthopedic shoes and a cross on a gold chain. She was holding a bag. The bag was not designer. It was cloth, a fabric tote, faded blue, with a broken zipper and handles that had been knotted where they'd torn from the stitching. It was full, bulging with what looked like snacks, a rolled-up sweater, a Ziploc bag of medications, and the folded corner of what might have been a church program. The woman was holding the bag the way you hold something that contains everything you need for wherever you're going. Not loosely, not carelessly, with both hands in her lap, close. Cassidy looked at the bag. She looked at the woman. She felt the content instinct ping, the sonar, the detection of incongruity, the reflexive calculation of what this visual could become on a screen. And then she felt something else. A second signal, newer, weaker, still forming. It said, "That bag is full of someone's life. You don't know what's in it. You don't know who she is. You don't know where she's going or what she's carrying or what it took her to get here. You don't know." Cassidy put her phone in her pocket. She looked at the woman. The woman wasn't looking at her. The woman was looking at the departure board, checking the time, adjusting the bag in her lap. Cassidy didn't film her, didn't caption her, didn't rate her. She just sat there in an airport, next to a stranger with a bag, and didn't do anything at all. It was, in its own small way, the first time in 4 years that Cassidy Monroe had been in a room with a person and not turned them into content. It didn't feel like growth. It felt like nothing, like silence, like an absence of the thing she'd been doing for so long that the not doing felt empty. But emptiness is where new things grow. Desai could have told her that. Desai, who started with an empty bag and told a girl on a porch to fill it with herself. The gate agent announced boarding. The woman with the blue tote stood up, adjusted her bag, and walked toward the jet bridge. Cassidy watched her go. She didn't know her name. She didn't know her story. She didn't know what was in the bag. And for the first time, that was enough. In Greenwood, Mississippi, in a shotgun house on Avenue F that Alma has kept exactly as it was, the bare bulb, the kitchen table, the chair by the window, the bag sits on the counter where Desai used to set it when she came home from the laundry. Alma goes there once a month. She unlocks the door. She sits in Desai's chair. She opens the bag and checks the contents, the bulletin, the lipstick, the handkerchief that no longer smells like anything but still exists, still folds, still fits in the palm of a hand. She closes the bag. Click. And she carries it home. If you've carried something old because it carried someone you loved, you don't need to explain it. Not to anyone. But if you want to tell me what it is, I'm listening.